These are some of the definitions. I told you there is one more definition of epilepsy, right? So, what is that definition? It is basically the disorder of the brain where the brain has an enduring predisposition to generate seizures on and on. Because of some abnormality in the brain, there is enduring predisposition to generate seizures, right? So, last slide I told you 2 unprovoked seizures more than 24 hours apart. Okay. Even you can clinically diagnose epilepsy if only one unprovoked seizure has taken place so far, but you have enough clinical information or you have an EEG or a neuroimaging which tells that this child has a predisposition to develop recurrent seizures. So, then also you can label as an epilepsy. You need not wait for 2 seizure episodes to take place, right? So, quite confusing it might sound, but please go back, read it again and again. They are all very, very simple. Okay. So, let's move. So, there are these few definitions more. So, I am sure all of you have heard about this. Acute symptomatic seizure, unprovoked seizure, remote symptomatic seizure. Acute symptomatic seizure means fever related seizures, a febrile seizure because of some acute illness which is going to alter the brain excitability. That is called as an acute symptomatic seizure. For example, there is a hypoglycemia that causes seizure, right? That is an acute symptomatic seizure. There is some provoking factor. So, that is one. Infection related seizures like an encephalitis, meningoencephalitis or hyponatremia, some electrolyte disturbances. So, all these are acute symptomatic or provoked seizures. Coming to the next definition, unprovoked seizure. Unprovoked seizure which is not an acute symptomatic seizure, you don't know the trigger, that is an unprovoked seizure. Remote symptomatic seizure. So, some insult has happened to the developing brain in the past. Okay. Some HIE sequelae, some old stroke, all these are remote symptomatic seizures. Okay. Few more definitions. Okay. So, what are reflex seizures? Reflex seizure is a very interesting concept. So, any stimuli like visual stimuli, a sudden light flickering of lights can trigger a seizure. It's photic stimulation. Some auditory, so because of music, somatosensory or proprioceptive stimuli. So, all these are sensory stimulus that can trigger the seizures. So, what is an epileptic syndrome? Say for example, we take a West syndrome. Okay. So, West syndrome, it is a specific syndrome or it is an epilepsy where the children will have specific seizures. They will have these epileptic spasms, right? They can have flexor, they can have extensor spasms, but spasms are specific for West syndrome. So, they are specific seizure type. The specific age of onset, it happens in the infantile. So, onset is in the infantile period. The specific duration, so for West syndrome, we say mostly it is going to be a prolonged duration of epilepsy. You know about the prognosis. So, when you know all these, it fits into the definition of an epileptic syndrome. What is an epileptic encephalopathy? Same, you take West syndrome as an example. So, epilepsy syndrome plus there is a severe EEG abnormality. The Hips arrhythmia is going to be the EEG abnormality in West syndrome. So, this West syndrome is going to affect the child's cognitive, it's going to affect the hearing, it's going to affect his vision. Yes. So, this constellation of epilepsy syndrome plus the EEG abnormality together and which is going to affect the child's cognitive development, that is called as an epileptic encephalopathy. Okay. So, with examples, if you think, it is very, very easy. So, ILAE recently they came up with this multiple framework while you diagnose an epilepsy. So, first you start with the seizure type. Whenever we receive a child in emergency, parents are so anxious that they are not able to recall how the seizure started. Especially if it is a fever triggered or a febrile seizure, no worries. But otherwise, if it is an unprovoked seizure, the semiology of seizure is very, very important, isn't it? So, always start from the step 1, go to step 5. So, by this step-by-step process, you will be able to identify what condition the child has. So, start from step 1. Step 1 is, you ask the parents, how was the seizure? Was it a focal seizure? Was it a generalized seizure? Most of the times when we put these leading questions, they will be able to tell, be able to enact, or they might even have videos. So, you see, is it a focal seizure? Or is it a generalized seizure, or the onset is not known, even of no one has noticed the child. Okay, so it is an unknown onset. So, this is step 1. Step 2, again, if there is two unprovoked seizures more than 24 hours apart, then I will fit that child into the epilepsy, right? So, in the epilepsy also, if it is only focal seizures, I will label it as a focal epilepsy. Okay. In case I do an EEG and I get a particular kind of an EEG abnormality, then I will put that under a particular epilepsy syndrome, right? So, starting from the seizure type, go on to the epilepsy type and then fit into the epilepsy syndrome if possible. Then etiology. Again, etiology, your neuroimaging will help, history will help, family history will help. So, all these will try to give you the etiology for that particular epilepsy. Step 5 will be comorbidities. Ask about speech, ask about intellectual, how the child is doing academically, any movement disorders. So, all these. So, whenever you diagnose, whenever you write the diagnosis, try to fill all these from step 1 to step 5. Okay, so that will be the complete diagnosis.